More than 6,000 rhinos have been killed in Africa since the start of the current poaching crisis. A decade ago, the scale of the slaughter would have been almost unimaginable. All too often, poaching and wildlife trafficking are dealt with as environmental issues or a simplified war on poaching. The reality is much darker. Sophisticated, ruthless transnational criminal syndicates whose tentacles span the globe, trafficking in rhino horn and other wildlife products. South Africa is home to 79% of Africa's last remaining rhinos. The Kruger National Park is the eye of the storm, accounting for roughly 60% of poaching incidents over the past 7 years. The park has lost more than 3,200 rhinos to poachers over the past decade. It's estimated that at least 7,500 poachers entered the park in 2015. This is a place the size of Israel or Wales. It covers an area of 19,400 square kilometers. And within that are around 430 ranges. To put that in context, it equates to roughly one ranger for every 50 square kilometers. There's a terrible human cost to this too. Between 150 and 200 poachers have been killed in the park in recent years. Several soldiers, rangers and police have also lost their lives. There's an immense psychological toll on rangers who find themselves in firefights on a regular basis with poaching gangs. I've spent the better part of the last 6 years investigating rhino poaching and wildlife trafficking, and I'm continually astonished by the sheer ruthless ingenuity of the criminal networks involved. For the most part, law enforcement efforts stop where borders begin. So in Mozambique, for instance, a poacher can be convicted and jailed, but a trafficker will be released after paying a fine because the law doesn't criminalize the smuggling of rhino horn. Information sharing and policing is fragmented at best and often focused at a very localized level rather than tackling the much broader problem, which is the entire length of the illicit supply chain and the networks that operate across borders. Borders are a boon to wildlife crime networks and they're a bane to the law enforcement officials rallied against them. Many of the countries along the trafficking routes have deeply entrenched problems with corruption, inefficient law enforcement, and don't have the willingness or the ability to effectively tackle these criminal networks. Information is simply not being shared. Rhino horn remains a high-value commodity and a low-risk commodity, something that can be easily bought and sold with very little concern for any sort of crackdown or any chance of being apprehended. Our investigations have revealed some disturbing trends, including the continuation of fraudulent pseudo-hunting activities by nationals from countries in Eastern Europe. We examine allegations of the involvement of Zimbabwe's notorious Central Intelligence Organization in supplying rifles to poaching gangs and smuggling rhino horn. We examine the involvement of a Vietnamese rhino horn smuggling kingpin in a game farm in South Africa that breeds tigers and has attempted to sell 100 rhinos to a zoo in Vietnam. Equally disturbing is evidence of North Korean diplomatic involvement in the illicit rhino horn trade, centering on its embassy in Pretoria in South Africa. So you don't want to comment at all? In 2015, a North Korean diplomat and a taekwondo master were arrested in Mozambique after a quantity of rhino horn and nearly $100,000 in cash was found in their vehicle. Black market demand for rhino horn shows no sign of flagging. And the markets keep evolving and the demand keeps evolving. All too often, law enforcement strategies and agreements between countries have been left in the hands of environmental agencies and departments. And the agencies that should be taking the lead have been absent. Agencies like the police, state security agencies, departments of justice. The fact is that environmental agencies often do not have the budgets, nor do they have the mandate or the capacity to tackle sophisticated transnational criminal networks. They simply are not in a position to do so. And the agencies with the biggest budgets, with the most power, and the agencies that have the political power to try and force some action have been absent. There are no easy answers or simple solutions. Despite the best efforts of many in law enforcement, government, conservation, and the international community, rhino poaching and wildlife trafficking remain an intractable issue. What is required is a dramatic rethink of global law enforcement strategies to tackle virulent and versatile transnational criminal networks driving the illicit trade. Without that, we are doomed to fail. The sad reality is that the tipping point, the point at which rhino deaths outnumber births, is near, and in some cases has been passed. We're running out of time. In fact, we have run out of time.